talking about the beautiful astrology of this very special day, 12 degrees in Scorpio. So I'm a Taurus, which is opposition to Scorpio. I have a very interesting relationship to Scorpio energy. And I think the best person in this circle will be beautiful Frances to help us to understand the astrology of this very unique time. So I want to pass on the talking stick to our wonderful mystic, Frances Evans.
Okay, so this was the beginning of the meeting here. And so the new moon is tomorrow, and it's a sort of interesting thing because if we, I'll do that in the new moon. What we see at this one is we start to see that the moon has just gone into Scorpio. So the moon is now hitting onto Mars, and they have a particular energy around this square that's been sitting between Pluto and Eris for the last year and a half. So we've had this disruptive, extreme relationship that's been wanting to bring about ultimate change, to bring to the surface true justice. So we're starting to see this. And so what happens is that the moon and Mars exactly is onto this, is in opposition to Eris, squaring to Pluto. So we're starting to see the final moments, because as Pluto moves forward, it has only a couple of degrees to go before it hits the birthplace of America, of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So we're going to see America come into its final, if you like, judgment. Finally, it gets judged. At the same time, we have the Sun opposition to Uranus, right? And there is squaring onto Saturn. So we're starting to see this is where the new moon will finally hit. But as yet, it's not quite there. So there's a few things that come out of this. And if I try to find the next screen, the next one, if I look at these are the Sabian symbols for those degrees. So we have the moon 2 degrees, and Mars at 4 degrees. But the whole of this cycle shows what's really beginning to come about. We're looking towards the if you like, it says a delicate bottle of perfume lies broken, releasing its fragrance. This is the old feelings, all the old remembrances are all coming to flood the mind and to bring out what is the memories of the old past that will, if you like, will evaporate. And so this is about the whole nature of surrendering. Scorpio is a lot about surrendering to the process of transformation, to giving up what is the old ways of being, the old past. And if you like, Scorpio is the sign that says death is the releaser that brings about birth. One has to die before a new birth can begin. And that, in the spiritual terms, it always says, the ego has to die. It has to bring that to its completion. One has to, if you like, take out all of the nutrients that came from the life of the ego and to transform them. So the second one is a house raising party in a small village enlists the neighbors' cooperation. And this is really about how the past and the if you like, the elders and the ancestors are all working together in cooperation to bring about the transformation. So this is essentially about coming together as a community, and it's a house raising party. It's a party where the community comes together to build a new house, to house someone who has either lost a house or is new to the community. Scorpio 4, which is where Mars is at, says that a youth carries a lighted candle in a devotional ritual. And this is really how we come together and we celebrate that. It's a social ceremony. It's bringing together and lighting the candles that bring about a unitedness. You know, it's a sacred moment. So that's those ones. And then we go to 11 degrees. I think it's 12 degrees. 12 degrees is where the sun is at, right? And so this says a drowning man is being rescued. And this really is a symbolic of the nature of maybe the COP26 group that's meeting. They're meeting together to rescue a drowning man, the drowning of all the things that have been overlooked and have not been brought about. So this is when a man risks his life to save another. It's love based on the sense of responsibility produced by a vivid sense of interrelatedness. So unless COP22 does this in this moment, in this new moon, then humanity will experience the wrath of the planet as it moves forward. So that's where that one is. Let's go back to the. So if I go to this here, is this one the right one? This is the actual new moon for New Zealand, but the new moon is sort of wherever it is. The important thing here is you see that 12 degrees 40 minutes is the conjunction of the sun moon. That's the absolute new moon. And directly opposite is Uranus in 12 degrees 47 minutes. It's 7 minutes in exactitude. And when that happens, it brings about a sense of electric, if you like, breakdown. It's Uranus makes things change in an electrical fashion, like a storm. You know, this is when lightning strikes, and it strikes in an unexpected fashion. So we are sitting right on that mark, if you like, and those are, of course, square to Saturn. Saturn then is the way in which that is expressed, how that brings what it brings out. So we're starting to see that the structures, the governments are under stress from a challenge that they have lost control of, that the trying as much as they will still end up with the same, difficulties. And the the big thing is that Taurus runs the money system. So we're going to see changes in the money system. And if you have read the news or anything, you start to see that the banks are beginning to realize it's out of control, that there's nothing that they can do to shift the rolling pattern that they have brought about. And we also have a quincunx angle to Black Moon Lilith, and Black Moon Lilith is the part of the chart that shows where the shadow side is, and so the shadow is coming to the fore. The shadow is wanting to be released through this new moon. So we're going to see the new moon take form. Now new moons, we have to remember that the new moon is a cyclic thing. So we at the moment are in the closing moments of the last cycle, the closing, if you like, the final totting up of the accounts. When the new moon hits, the old is gone and a new beginning and this then begins the next cycle. And the next cycle takes us to the full moon. So the full moon on November the 19th, right? And we start to see some, for this group, it starts to show some very interesting things. There's when you have, if you can look, you can see these two green dotted lines. The dotted lines are the inconjunct or quincunx angles, and when they come together, they're called a finger of God. What we see is that they come from Venus and Mars on either side of the sun. The masculine or the active dynamic force and the receptive reflective forces are coming together in order to focus attention on this point, and that point is the North Node. The North Node is about what the next phase of learning is. What is it that needs to be brought through in the new impulse? So we're starting to see a new impulse coming in, a new dialogue, a new narrative, and it's in the sign of Gemini, and you can see that it's stationary. So the North Node goes generally backwards, right? But at this point it's stationary, and it's at that point of it's stopped. So we are looking at, something about bringing your own, the dialogue of your own relationship, right? Male to female, and what you expect from those. I've got a drama. So just bear with me for a minute, because my earphones have suddenly decided not to continue on. So I'll just change.
Francis, is this a good moment to open the floor? Just if anybody of our participants has actually a question to something you just mentioned, or a particular constellation, or just please, beautiful people, just there's the reactions button in the bottom on Zoom. So thumbs up, just hands up if you want to ask questions. So this is not a presentation that is just from Francis' side. So I'm sure that if there are personal questions, that he's happy to answer them as we flow and go, okay? So just down here, you have these raised hands and can just put little icons there. It's just, I'm sure you find that. So I'll pass back on to Francis.
Okay, so this is sort of what is coming up and happening in the full moon. So we have, you know, the sun opposite now. Now sun is in Scorpio, but the moon is back in its home. You know, like the moon is exalted in Taurus, right? And the reason for this is the moon is always fluctuating. It's always changing. And Taurus is the most stable place for it to be. So it's there, right in the place where it loves to be. There's another interesting thing in this is that if people know anything about the rays are energies that are sort of expressed. The first ray, the will ray, is sort of like the dynamic one. It has a reflection in the seventh ray. Second ray reflected in the sixth. Third ray reflected in the fifth. But the fourth ray, which you can see is extreme expression here. The fourth ray is called the ray of harmony through conflict. And if we look at where it is in the chakras, it's the heart chakra, the chakra that says, if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to confront things. I'm not just going to, you know, push out, love everything and accept it, but I am going to create conflict in order to harmonize it, to bring the two together. And this is very often the relationship between male, female, the nature of sexuality. Right? Because this is about harmonizing, and Scorpio is all about coming together and taking a role and an integration, recognizing difference. So that's the full moon, and then we come to the next new moon. Next new moon, the 4th of December. Right, it's moved on to Sagittarius. So now that is gone, and we are now into a full-blown discussion, if you like, because if you can see this, we are now about squaring to Neptune. Neptune is the Neptune is where the dream world comes, where the philosophy that one lives at. But you can see that it is the new moon focused on the Lilith, the shadow. So near here we have the shadow coming out. This whole cycle says, now you come around, you've put your intention in, you have done the deal. You have seen the results. Now comes the exposure. So what we're going to see at the end of this cycle is we're going to see exposure. We're going to see more and more of the truth, the shadow that's been hidden coming to the surface.
Thank you, Francis. I think this is a very good moment. I want to actually really be quite integrative here, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm sharing in a moment my screen because I think I will come to the part of the actual Love Coach retreat process. For those of you who are new, the way this works in this Blessed Pray love processes is that ultimately we have a Love Coach retreat. Those of you who have done work with me or are my clients know that I have a very specific way of working with my clients. And I think we had a few keywords that really fit into the wonderful process I have, independent from Francis, prepared. And it's so interesting, Francis, even though we had this wonderful conversation on Monday before this process, a few keywords you mentioned now we haven't discussed, and that's what I have prepared for you. So the inquiry we want to call out Francis, I, and Greg for this evening is, or for this afternoon, is really one going into ancestral imprints. It's a very, very strong new moon that asks us to bond us with our ancestral energy. In my work, Quantum Intimacy, that's through going back a particular timeline in our existential pathways, to which I will come in a moment. The second line I some sort of created bond with is karmic liberation. And what you mentioned, Francis, is the sacred sexuality bit. So would you agree that we are like last month with the finger on the pulse here? Is that good where we are, Francis?
Yeah, why not? I also want to talk about quantum.
Yes, and I will come to that in a moment. So I think the invocation we really look at today is, what is the one relationship, conditioning, addiction, blockage, codependency, imposter syndrome, obsession of physical, mental, emotional imbalance I'm consciously willing to release to the divine. So for those of you who are new, is this process will give you in the next 3 hours the opportunity to unlock that through various processes, through talking physically in the circle here, through having the astrological backing, and also having the healing and the blessings through Greg and Debbie.
I'm going to talk us through something, right? Because standing at a moment when science and psychology have finally accepted what's going on. This is something that has been happening for a long, long time. People do not know that Jung and the quantum physicists were deeply ingrained and happy and really trying to bring this together. So it's sort of exciting because, we're living in a quantum world. We've always lived in a quantum world. But no one has accepted, because the world we live in seems to be real. It seems that we have descended into a dream world, and it has somehow taken over us. We've created this world that we live in individually and collectively, and it's a work of art. It is your own personal work of art, and it comes from some element of consciousness outside of the physical reality we exist in. What we know about quantum physics is it cannot be separate from consciousness, because whatever you see in the quantum experiments are determined by the observer. You cannot have the observer out of it. So what I am asking everyone to do is, for a moment, just follow me. And I want to talk you through this whole nature of this thing. The quantum field, or fields as they are nested. So the greatest one of all is infinity. Then you have the universe, the cosmos, and the galaxies, and so on down through till you arrive at the solar system. That is the closest quantum field that we really relate to. So astrology is the marking of the quantum field of the solar, the heliosphere, which is the distance out that the sun's influence goes. And then we are in the world's, the Earth's quantum field, and then social, national, and all the rest of it. So the quantum field is something that is not divisible, you know, you don't go from, it's not like a continuum. The quantum field is an either or. You're either here or you're there. So when you shift yourself from being inside the world, the consciousness is simply outside the world. There's no sort of drifting around in that sense. So I invite you just to take a moment to review yourself inside the world you occupy. And when you do that, you do it without judgments or criticizing and without denial. You're just looking at the world you have created and the wonderful creativity that you've had in doing this. And in doing that, just intellectually see yourself as the total creator of your universe. You are the total manufacturer of this, everything in it. And then as a mental exercise, this is just a consciousness exercise, imagine yourself lifting yourself out of this framework and occupying the space that you might call your higher self, whatever you want to call it, the space outside of the creation as you look upon it, as you look upon the experiments that are going on in the world that you created. So you're looking over it, sort of like you're in the position of being the manifester, the real manifester of the creation that you're experiencing. And from this place that you look down over the creation that you found yourself inside and acknowledge this is a co-creation between the two yous for the benefit of learning experience. So we came into this world from above, into it to experience learning, and everything that happened or is happening, all of it was designed to bring something to attention, something to adjust. And so from the higher perspective, you might view the worldly experience as a picture that you painted and descended into. It's like you created this map and then you came down all the way down through all the things, and it's, you know, and there's this and that, and there's the other people, and finally, boom, you find yourself in you. And you might look around and think to yourself, how the hell did I get here? How did I arrive here? You know, where did I come from? How did this all happen to me? I am the victim of it. Oh, I am the creator of it. It's up to you. It's up to which side of the decisions you want to put on that. But it's a masterpiece. And as you see that, notice that you still have the brushes and the paints, and that you created the masterpiece all around you. And the masterpiece is still as yet unfinished. You're a great master artist. And as that great artist, you recognize that there are certain parts of the creation that are not exactly as you would like them to be. Right? They were all right when you first, you know, when you weren't the great master artist that you are now, but now they need some, you know, redoing. Right? You might see that some parts of it need changing and parts still need to be added. So from that artistic point of view, as you look down, just evaluate what you might do. Like, what is in the past that you could sort of paint over or chisel away or make changes to, so that it was more in line with the flow of your life from where you are now. Right? These are old things that have left a taint. And you notice that you can't simply paint over something. The old image there remains, the textures underneath it and the elements, they leave traces of the old history. So you realize it is better to completely remove these with a scraping tool or with a chisel or a razor or whatever you want. But you have to know how much of the surrounding part of the masterpiece will you take away with it, so that you can blend it in to the surroundings. What are you going to do to make those changes? Right? And perhaps it's better to erase more than less. Better to, it's a bit like if you're going to cut out a cancer, take a lot out just in case there's anything left around the edges. You don't want any of the edges to infiltrate and poison what you're doing here. So you can start to do that in your own time and your own way, because as the creator of your universe, you're also the discreator of it. As you erase and eliminate this, you notice how hard you have to scrape. I mean, how hard is the old stuff? Is the part old and dried and crusty and hard? Do you have to dig at it to get rid of those bits that have caused you a lot of upset, and they still, every time you go over it, it feels rough and disturbing, right? So this is an opportunity just in this time, because this time frame, remember, is about death. It's about elimination, about cutting away the old and providing the basis for a new creation. So when you start to dig at that, would you do better with a sharp knife or a chisel? Because all the tools are there, like a great artist, you have all the tools you might need to work on this, to get down to the bottom of it, to get it, scrape it back to the bare canvas, all the way back, and to create something new. So just in imagining this happening, so once you have created a blank, empty spot, you can begin to feel into this area, into the area of your life. What is the area of your life that you have wanted to redefine, to reevaluate, rebuild? Because, here's a great quote here, because art is a conspiracy between the intellect and the heart. You can't just throw some paint on it because it feels that way, but it's a conspiracy. You need to feel into it, and you also need technique. You also need to be able to do it carefully with with the right attitude to this. So when you're ready to create, the question is, do you build the texture first? Do you layer something, some plaster or some material that holds a shape, right? Before you even put any sort of color on it, do you build the shape, the underlying terrain of the new experience? You know, what does that look like? Does it have a flow that goes with it? Does it have ridges? Is it soft? Does it have shape, but this unsharpness, if you like, no ridges in it? Or does it have ridges? Does it flow? Does it make a new base for your creation? Does it flow in to the rest of your creation? All the things that you have wanted, does it flow in and make a new place, a new form to be in? So when you have got the background quality and given shape and form, what is to be applied on the top? You know, the first thing you do is you got to put your base tones on, right? The colors and the richness that shines through the final colors, right? Because so often we want to just put the surface on, but what is beneath it is not shining. It is not holding that creation. It's not bringing it out with the richness it deserves. So we're choosing the colors of richness that we would put on our creation, on our new world order that we're putting into place. And once you've got that base color, the richness there, then it's time to put your impressions. You know, this is about choosing the work with color and detail and shape and form, and bring out what is underneath, bringing it out and adding the little quality points that make this creation into a workable experience. And what you're doing is you're putting meaning into the experience, you know, because every experience comes with the meaning you impose on it. It doesn't have a meaning of itself. It doesn't come out of the thing. It's what you're seeing. Everything you see has meaning as you applied it. So it's a co-creation between what you intended and what you're creating. So often people intend something to be a certain way, and then they descend into it, and it's nothing like it at all. So we have to acknowledge that it's a co-creation between what was intended and what will be experienced. Now, you could say the final act might be to add a finishing varnish. But first of all, the higher self needs to descend into the new creation and just familiarize itself with it. So you descend down inside the work, and you'll notice that most of it is familiar. And there are aspects and areas that you're not exactly used to. They're not exactly who you've been in the past. There are thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and judgments that you will need to release before you can even become comfortable here. lessons need to be learned. Is this how you'd prefer to be? Are you ready for it? Are there things still needing to change? Because this is the moment to rise out of the artwork again to the viewpoint of the ascended teacher. Because you need to consider for a moment the consequence of assuming this new role. Are you and your material being ready and willing to lock into these changes? Or do you want to redesign the project a little more? So in the next few minutes, moments of clock time, just make the changes that you prefer. You can descend in and out of the creation, taking in, experiencing, coming out, re-evaluating, descending and experiencing, and so forth, until it is exactly how you would like it to be. And clock time is a strange thing because it can extend in personal time as fast or as slow. You can be doing this while you're here doing something else because it's an ongoing process, in and out, descending until you're ready to descend right back into this new creation and lock in the experience. That is, you're putting on the final lacquer, the final varnish of the finished masterpiece. And then in your own time and space, arrive back here, exactly in the location that you occupy, the place where you left from. And I just want to say, maybe as a warning, recognize that things may be different for you over the next few days or so. You know, letting the unconscious do the work while you remain in your world.